everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a book review for Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Before I dive into my thoughts about this book, I just wanted to mention that this was part of a read-along that is taking place on Dani's channel over at Spenelli Speaks. We are doing some live streams for this read-along as well, and our final one is coming up on October 31st on Halloween. I'll have that information linked down below for you and Dani's channel, so you can check that out in case you want to join in and talk with us on the live stream. But we are really excited to talk about this book together. We will be doing that very, very soon, and I couldn't even wait. I just wanted to film a book review now for it. So let's go ahead and get into some non-spoilery thoughts. This book was really just such a perfect fall read. It's so atmospheric and it's spooky. If this was the same story written in modern times, this would be considered a psychological thriller, no doubt. So if you're a thriller fan in general and you want to get into classics, I think Crime and Punishment might be the perfect book for you. But what makes Crime and Punishment so interesting is that we know what the crime is very early on in the book. Crime and Punishment starts out with, you guessed it, a crime. A crime is committed by our main character, Raskolnikov. That's not really a spoiler going into it, but that is the setup. There's a crime committed. I won't even tell you what the crime is, just in case you really just don't want to know anything. But this book is all about that crime that is committed and then the fallout that happens afterward, and the rest of the book is really dealing with the punishment. The back of my book says that it is told from a murderer's point of view, but that's actually a little bit false. Although we do spend a lot of time knowing about the internal thoughts of our antagonist, he's kind of both. The story isn't told by Raskolnikov, because you do feel like you are really embedded into his mind and you know what he's thinking. You were really along for the psychological ride of this book. And what makes the story interesting is that the fallout and the punishment is so much more psychological and internal than it is external. Something that really surprised me about this book was how accessible it is. It is incredibly easy to read. From what I've read about this, it's one of Dostoevsky's more lighter novels, which it's very heavy subject material. But as far as easy to understand, this one is a great entry point into his novels. I actually expected to struggle a lot more than I did. I was really pleasantly surprised at how readable this is. Something else to know about this book before going in is that it is filled with philosophical conversations. There's a lot of philosophy dealt in this book. There's a lot of talk about nihilism that was very relevant to Dostoevsky's life, and a lot of his writings reflect that. So a big part of this book is nihilism and how it works into society, how when it's implemented, what it does to society, what it does to humans and human nature. Also the question of, do the ends ever justify the means, is a central point to this novel. Injustices between class systems and gender are very prevalent as well. And I think it's important to note that the women in this book are also really the shining stars of the novel. There's surprisingly strong feminist themes in this book, which I was not expecting at all. As we follow Raskolnikov throughout the book, he encounters a lot of women that he's very compassionate towards, a lot of women in bad situations, downtrodden, in prostitution, and he has a lot of compassion for them and their plights in the world. And Dostoevsky uses a lot of the women characters to show the contrast between how they're dealing with their adversity so well, and then how some other characters really don't deal with their adversity well at all. And so that brings us to our next important theme in this book, and that's that we are the products of our own choices, and we decide how we're going to deal with what happens to us. There's a lot of contrasting the characters in dualities. There's even similar names, and so we will get character foils a lot in this book, and you'll see how they have maybe a similar situation, but they dealt with it in a completely different way. And Dostoevsky does a great job of contrasting the character foils to let you know that these characters are making choices. Even if they are in similar situations, they are making a conscious choice to deal with it well or not well. People who like character studies in books are gonna love this one, because Raskolnikov is a fascinating, deep, complex character study. While he commits the crime really early in the novel, you do kind of root for him. You sort of want him to get away with it. And if you don't want him to get away with it, you at least can identify with some part of his struggle and his feelings. And I found myself having compassion for Raskolnikov from time to time, even though he's an extremely flawed character and you do kind of want justice to happen, you also identify with him in an interesting way. Inwardly, Raskolnikov is not good. He has so many problems, he has so many flaws, but don't we all? And I think Dostoevsky really wants us to identify with him and see something of ourselves in him, because I think Dostoevsky wants us to know anyone can commit a crime. You could commit a crime. You have both bad and good in you, and are you going to let the bad or the good control you? What choices are you going to make? So Raskolnikov is always changing his mind between doing something selfishly and acting in self-interest, and then he'll go and do something altruistic. So we're always seeing this internal conflict with him, and I personally found that to be just part of human nature and something that I could relate to as well. We all have both inside. We are all capable of evil and capable of good. I will say this book is very grim for most of it. It has a hopeless feeling for a lot of the book. And so I think that could be a turnoff for some people. It sometimes made it difficult for me to get through because I did feel very bogged down in the darkness of this book. There's definitely a lot of bleakness. It's not a happy book for most of it. I also felt there were too many subplots going on in this book. I really only wanted to follow Raskolnikov, and we do follow some other side characters. Different subplots come in and out of the story and intertwine with Raskolnikov's struggles, but I was definitely more interested in the parts with Raskolnikov and where we got to see inside of his head. I didn't always care about some of the side characters, but maybe on a second read, I would get more out of that. Another negative for me in this book was sometimes just really long-winded speeches, which really were essays for the author, given by the characters. I definitely zone out sometimes when characters go on these long-winded speeches. I find that happens a lot in classics, and it's just a style that I like sometimes if I'm interested in what they're talking about, but then some other times I just felt like the character was going on a tangent, and it just felt like an essay inserted into the book. Now, I've seen this done in a lot more long-winded ways. This is definitely not that bad when it comes to that, but sometimes that did take me out of the story a little bit. But the philosophical conversations that the characters were having were really interesting, so there was usually something that I could latch onto, even if we had like pages and pages of dialogue. What really got me in this book, though, was the ending. I thought it was a fantastic ending, and I was so glad that it ended the way it did. It was really unexpected, and it was a pleasant surprise, I'll just say that. I have now only read 2 Russian classics. I have read Anna Karenina, and I have read Crime and Punishment now, and I think Crime and Punishment is my favorite out of those 2. I'll have to reread Anna Karenina, but I really, really liked this book a lot, and I would definitely reread it. I think this is a classic that you should not pass up if it sounds appealing to you. Let me know if you have read Crime and Punishment, if you are interested in it. Is it on your classics bucket list? I'm really glad that I have read it now, and I thought it was totally worth it. It was worth the effort, and it's been so great to talk to people about this book too. So again, if you want to talk to us in the next live stream about this book, I will link the date and time for that and Dani's channel down below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday. I hope you're having a beautiful day, keep reading great books, and until next time, bye-bye.